Hi, dear, thank you for choosing to spend your time with this story. I want to share something close to my heart, a tale about finding love in the most unexpected place, about the quiet moments that change everything, and about the courage it takes to speak when your heart is breaking. This is a story about hope, about second chances, and about learning that sometimes the scariest thing we can do is also the most beautiful. It's about two people, an ordinary office, and feelings that grew so big they couldn't stay hidden anymore. I hope this story touches your heart the way these memories still touch mine. So please get comfortable, maybe grab a warm cup of tea, and let me take you back to where it all began, to the place where I learned what it truly means to love someone. Welcome to my story. I never thought I would fall in love at work, honestly. I thought those things only happened in movies or in the romance books I used to hide in my desk drawer. But life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it, and that's exactly what happened to me on an ordinary Tuesday morning when he walked into our office for the first time, wearing a nervous smile and carrying a box of his belongings. His name was Daniel, and he was assigned to the desk right across from mine, close enough that I could see him clearly but far enough that I could pretend I wasn't looking, and oh, how I looked. From that very first day, something inside me shifted, like a door I didn't know existed suddenly opened, and light came pouring through. He had kind eyes, the type that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, and a gentle way of speaking that made everyone around him feel comfortable and heard. I remember thinking he seemed different from the others, quieter maybe, more thoughtful, and I found myself drawn to that quietness like it was a song only I could hear. The first few weeks were simple. We exchanged polite good mornings and brief conversations about work projects, nothing special, nothing that would make anyone think twice. But I was thinking about him all the time, during meetings, during lunch breaks, during my drive home when the radio played love songs that suddenly made sense. I started noticing little things about him, the way he tapped his pen against his notebook when he was concentrating, how he always brought lunch from home in the same blue container, the fact that he drank his coffee black with no sugar, and how he would sometimes stare out the window with the faraway look in his eyes, like he was dreaming about somewhere else or someone else. And I wondered if he ever thought about me the way I thought about him. Months passed, and our friendship grew slowly, carefully, like a plant that needs just the right amount of water and sunlight. We started taking coffee breaks together, and those 15 minutes became my favorite part of every day. We talked about everything and nothing, about our childhoods and our dreams, about the books we loved and the places we wanted to visit. And with every conversation, I fell a little deeper, a little harder, until loving him became as natural as breathing. But I never said anything. I kept my feelings locked away in my heart, afraid that speaking them out loud would ruin everything we had built, afraid that he didn't feel the same way, afraid of the awkwardness that would follow if I was wrong. So I stayed quiet and loved him from across the desk, through stolen glances and small gestures that I hoped would somehow tell him what my words could not. I started bringing an extra coffee for him every morning, learning exactly how he liked it even though he always drank it black. I just knew when he needed it most, on the hard days when his shoulders looked tense and his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I would place that cup on his desk without saying much, and he would look up at me with such gratitude, such warmth, that my heart would nearly burst right there in the middle of the office. He started doing little things too, things that made me wonder if maybe, just maybe, he felt something too. He would save me a seat in meetings, always choosing the chair next to mine. He would share his lunch when I forgot mine. He would leave little sticky notes on my computer with jokes or words of encouragement when he knew I was stressed. And once, when I was sick and missed 3 days of work, he texted me every single day to check if I was okay, if I needed anything, and I read those messages over and over until I had them memorized. The office began to feel different. It wasn't just a place I went to work anymore. It was the place where I got to see him, to be near him, to exist in the same space and breathe the same air, and that transformed everything. Even the boring tasks felt meaningful because I was doing them in his presence. Even the difficult days felt bearable because I knew he was just a few feet away, and if I looked up, I might catch him looking at me too. Our coworkers started to notice. I could see it in their knowing smiles, and the way they would pair us together for projects, the way they would tease us gently about being work spouses. And we would laugh it off, but inside, my heart would race because I wanted it to be true. I wanted to be his in every way that mattered, not just at work, but everywhere, always. Then came the day that changed everything, the day I had been dreading without even knowing it was coming. It was a Friday afternoon, and our manager called everyone into the conference room for an announcement. We all gathered around the big table, confused and curious, and that's when Daniel stood up, his face serious but also excited, and he told us he had been offered an amazing job opportunity in another city, a position he had dreamed about for years, a chance he couldn't turn down, and he would be leaving in 3 weeks. The room erupted in congratulations and supportive words. People clapped and patted him on the back, asking questions about his new role and his move, but I couldn't hear any of it. All I could hear was the sound of my own heart breaking, slowly, quietly, like glass cracking under pressure. I felt frozen in my chair, unable to move or speak, unable to do anything but stare at him and realize that I was about to lose the person I loved most in the world, and he didn't even know I loved him. The next 3 weeks were torture. Every day felt like walking toward the edge of a cliff, knowing the fall was coming but unable to stop it. I tried to act normal, tried to be happy for him because he deserved this opportunity. He deserved every good thing in the world, but at night I would cry into my pillow, mourning something I never even had, grieving a future that existed only in my imagination. All those daydreams of us finally being together, of him holding my hand, of hearing him say he loved me too, they were disappearing like smoke, and I felt powerless to stop it. I thought about telling him 100 times. The words were always right there on the tip of my tongue, during our coffee breaks, during late afternoons when everyone else had gone home, and it was just the two of us in the quiet office, during lunch when he would look at me with those kind eyes and ask if I was okay because he could tell something was wrong. I wanted to say it, to just open my mouth and let the truth pour out, but every time, fear wrapped around my throat like a hand, choking the words back down. What if he didn't feel the same way? What if I made his last weeks here awkward and uncomfortable? What if I ruined the beautiful friendship we had built? What if, the questions paralyzed me, and so I stayed silent, hating myself a little more each day for being such a coward. His last day arrived too quickly. Time has a cruel way of speeding up when you want it to slow down. The office had planned a farewell party for him. Nothing fancy, just cake and coffee and some gifts we had all chipped in to buy. Everyone gathered in the break room during lunch, laughing and sharing memories, telling embarrassing stories about Daniel that made him blush and shake his head. And through it all, I stood in the corner, trying to memorize everything: the sound of his laugh, the way his hair fell across his forehead, the exact shade of his eyes. I wanted to burn it all into my memory, because soon it would be all I had left. As the party wound down and people started drifting back to their desks, Daniel made his way through the room, hugging everyone goodbye, thanking them for the memories and the friendship. And with each goodbye, he came closer to me, and my heart beat faster and faster until I thought it might actually explode when he finally stood in front of me. We just looked at each other for a long moment, and I saw something in his eyes, something that looked almost like sadness, like maybe this was hard for him too, but different, not the same kind of hard it was for me. He reached out and hugged me, and I wrapped my arms around him, holding on tighter than I should have, breathing in his familiar scent, feeling the warmth of his body against mine, and thinking, this is it. This is the last time, and I felt the tears starting to build behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here, not now. When we pulled apart, he smiled at me, that gentle smile I had fallen in love with, and he said, "I'm really going to miss you. You know that, right? You made coming to work actually mean something. Thank you for being such a good friend." And that word friend, it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. But I smiled back and said, "I'll miss you too. So much. I hope everything works out beautifully for you. You deserve it." And my voice only shook a little, which I considered a victory. He squeezed my hand once, and then he turned to grab his box of belongings from his desk. People were taking final photos, exchanging phone numbers, promising to keep in touch. And I stood there watching him, feeling like I was watching my whole heart walk away, and I still couldn't say it. Couldn't tell him. The words were right there. "I love you. I have loved you for so long. Please don't go. Or if you have to go, at least know that someone here loves you with everything she has." But they stayed trapped inside, locked behind my fear and my doubt. Daniel was almost to the door, his hand on the handle, when suddenly something inside me just snapped. Maybe it was desperation, or maybe it was finally finding a tiny shred of courage, but I heard myself calling his name, loud enough that everyone still in the break room turned to look. He stopped and turned around, his eyes finding mine across the room, questioning, waiting, and I walked toward him, my legs shaking, my heart hammering so hard I thought everyone could hear it. And when I reached him, standing there in front of the door with half the office watching, I took a deep breath and I finally said it. "I need to tell you something," I started, my voice barely above a whisper, "and I know this is probably the worst timing in the world, and I'm sorry if this makes things weird or uncomfortable, but if I don't say it now, I'll regret it for the rest of my life." I could feel tears starting to slide down my cheeks, but I didn't care anymore. I was done hiding, done being afraid. "Daniel, I love you. I have been in love with you since almost the first day you walked into this office. Every coffee I brought you, every conversation we had, every moment we spent together, I was falling more and more in love with you. And I know you're leaving, and I know you probably don't feel the same way, and that's okay. I just needed you to know. I needed you to know that you were loved, that you are loved, so deeply and so completely, and even if nothing comes from this, even if you walk out that door and I never see you again, at least you'll know the truth." The room was completely silent, everyone staring, and for a moment Daniel just looked at me, his eyes wide with shock, and I thought, "Oh no, I've ruined everything. I've made a terrible mistake." But then his face changed, softened, and he dropped his box right there on the floor, and he stepped toward me, closing the distance between us, and he reached up to wipe the tears from my cheeks with his thumbs, his hands gentle and warm against my skin. "You love me?" he asked, his voice full of wonder, like he couldn't quite believe it, and I nodded, unable to speak any more. And then he laughed, this beautiful, joyful sound, and he said, "I have been in love with you too. From the very beginning, I thought you only saw me as a friend. I thought I was alone in this feeling. Do you know how many times I almost told you, how many times I practiced what I would say, but I was so scared of losing you. And then I got this job offer and I thought maybe it was for the best. Maybe it would be easier to leave than to stay and love you from a distance." His hands were still on my face, and he was looking at me like I was the most precious thing in the world. "I was trying to do the right thing, trying not to complicate your life. But if you love me, if you really love me, then I don't want to go, or I want you to come with me, or we'll figure something out, because I can't walk away from you now. Not now that I know." And then he kissed me, right there in the office break room with all our coworkers watching. He kissed me soft and gentle and full of all the love we had been holding back for so long. And I kissed him back, my hands in his hair, my heart soaring, everything I had felt for months finally finding its place, finally being received and returned. And when we finally pulled apart, breathless and smiling, the whole room burst into applause and cheers, our coworkers laughing and crying and celebrating with us. Apparently we hadn't been as subtle as we thought. Apparently everyone had known, had been hoping, had been waiting for this moment, just like we had. Daniel didn't leave that day. He called his new employer and explained the situation. Asked if there was any way to delay the start date or work remotely part-time. And miraculously, they agreed. They valued him enough to be flexible, and we found a way to make it work. It wasn't perfect. There were challenges and compromises, long distance for a while, lots of phone calls and video chats and weekend visits, but we faced it all together, and that made all the difference. Looking back now, I can't imagine what would have happened if I hadn't found the courage to speak that day. If I had let him walk out that door without telling him how I felt, I would have spent the rest of my life wondering what if, carrying that love around like a stone in my chest, but instead, I took the risk. I chose hope over fear, and it changed everything. It gave me not just a love story, but a life partner, someone who knows me deeply and loves me anyway, someone who makes every ordinary day feel extraordinary just by being in it. Our office romance became a real romance, and eventually it became a marriage. And now when I walk past that break room where I finally told him I loved him, I smile and remember that sometimes the scariest moment of your life can also be the most beautiful. Sometimes breaking your own heart open is the only way to let love in, and sometimes, if you're very lucky, the person you love is standing there waiting, holding their own heart out to you, hoping you'll be brave enough to take it. Thank you so much for reading my story, for walking with me through these memories that still make my heart flutter even after all this time. I hope it reminded you that love is worth the risk, that courage doesn't mean not being afraid. It means doing the thing that scares you anyway because some things are too important to let fear win. If you're holding on to feelings for someone, if you're standing at your own edge wondering whether to speak or stay silent, I hope this story gives you a little push toward bravery. Life is too short to love in silence, too precious to let chances slip away, too beautiful to spend it wondering what might have been. We get one life, one chance to tell the people we love that we love them, and sometimes that one moment of courage can change everything. So speak your heart, take the risk, choose hope, and trust that love, real love, is always worth it. Thank you again for being here, for listening, and I wish you all the love and happiness your heart can hold. Goodbye for now, dear reader, and may you find your own beautiful love story.